Hello you lovely lot, and welcome back to my stagey YouTube channel. Today, if you couldn't guess, I have a brand new review for you guys, in which I will be sharing all of my thoughts and feelings on Clueless the Musical, which is currently at the Trafalgar Theatre in London. If you are new here, allow me to bring you up to speed with how all of this is about to work. First and foremost, my name is Flora, and I have a lot, and I mean a lot of opinions about theatre, and those are opinions I like sharing here with you guys. Now, these are opinions that I feel like many think I am underqualified to have, but that has never stopped me before, so I'm going to share them anyway. Secondly, in my reviews, I always like to give you guys a little bit of background on the show, so how it started, and a little bit of a synopsis as to the story as well, before diving into my likes and dislikes, or as I've rebranded them, the highlights and lowlights of the production. Thirdly, everything shared in this video will be nothing but my own opinion, and you are more than welcome to disagree with me down in the comments. And finally, this isn't exactly going to be a spoiler-free review because I feel like I need to spoil certain moments to best convey my thoughts and feelings, so if you are someone who doesn't want Clueless the Musical spoiled, this isn't exactly the video for you. Oh, also, this review is one very kindly paid for by me, myself, and I. I always like to make it clear to you guys when this is a show I've been invited to review versus one that I have spent my own hard-earned money on, and today, Clueless is one that I decided to treat myself to, paying £50 for my ticket. Right, with all those disclaimers out the way, let's get on with the show. And first things first, a little bit of background on the production history of Clueless the Musical. Okay, so first things first, there are two different versions of Clueless the Musical, which I didn't know prior to sort of doing the research for this video. There is the 2018 off-Broadway production of it, as well as the 2024-25 London/West End production of it, and I was surprised by just how different these two productions were. The 2018 off-Broadway production was actually a jukebox musical, which used 80s and 90s songs such as Bye 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 from NSYNC, as well as You Give What You Get by the New Radicals. And whilst it was a jukebox musical, it actually changed some of the lyrics in the songs to better suit the story of Clueless, but it was a jukebox musical nonetheless. Oh, and fun fact, you can actually hear a lot of these songs being played around the Trafalgar Theatre prior to the show starting, which I thought was really neat. But by contrast, the 2025 production features an all-new soundtrack of original songs by Katie Tunstall, who some of you might know as a singer-songwriter behind the song Black Horse and a Cherry Tree, which is certainly where I knew her from. This show also features an entirely new creative team as well, setting it apart from the 2018 production even further. Now, this 2025 production at the Trafalgar Theatre actually started off as a 2-week run in Bromley, I believe, before it transferred to the West End in 2025, with Emma Flynn and Keelan Macaulay reprising their roles as Cher and Josh respectively. And as of when I'm filming this video, it has just been announced that the show has extended through until 2026, so it's sticking around on the West End for a while now. Of course, both the 2018 and 2025 productions of Clueless are based on the 1995 movie of the same name, which starred Alicia Silverstone as Cher, and Clueless overall is actually based on Jane Austen's Emma. So now that we have a little bit of background on Clueless as a concept, shall we say, how about I give you the 411 on what Clueless the Musical is actually about? Like I mentioned just moments ago, Clueless is actually based on Jane Austen's Emma, but instead of the story taking place in rainy old England, it has been moved to Beverly Hills, LA, where we meet our main character, Cher, who is Clueless's equivalent of the character of Emma. Now, on the surface, Cher is shallow, rich, and socially successful, and at the top of her class when it comes to the popularity scale at her Beverly Hills high school. Much like Jane Austen's Emma, Cher really sees herself as a matchmaker for others, which we first see her demonstrate when she matches two teachers together, whilst at the same time she also benefits from this by giving herself better grades, so it's not an entirely selfless act. This success with her teachers prompts Cher to take a chance on fish out of water new girl Ty, who's just moved to LA from New York. She takes Ty and gives her a makeover, preparing her to be set up with the most eligible boy at school. It's only when Ty becomes more popular than her that Cher realizes that her disapproving ex-stepbrother Josh was right about how misguided her actions were, with her treating everyone like human Barbies as opposed to the real human beings that they are. There is also a romance plot that happens between Cher and Josh, with the two realizing that them bickering back and forth was actually just them falling for one another, and naturally the story ends with the two of them getting together. Oh, and perhaps most importantly, over the course of the story, Cher learns to drive and finally gets her driving license. So now that you know what Clueless is about, I should perhaps explain to you guys what I knew about Clueless personally prior to going to see the show, and that was absolutely nothing. Now, you might be wondering why I, oh hater of the movie to stage adaptation that I am, decided to take a chance on Clueless the Musical Musical, bearing in mind I couldn't even tell you the last time I saw Clueless the movie. Well, it was all actually thanks to the wonderful James Lim, a member of the fantastic Clueless cast. Now, I'm not normally someone who goes and sees a show specifically because of the people in them, but I actually had met James whilst taking a tap class with the UK touring cast of Aladdin, of all places. He is genuinely one of the most sweet and encouraging people I have ever met, because he had to deal with me being unable to actually tap dance for best part of an hour and a half. So I knew the moment I saw that he had been cast in this show that I had to go and cheer him on. But aside from James though, I really knew nothing about Clueless. Like I said, I don't know the last time I watched the movie, though I do know I definitely have watched it, even if it was only once, and I definitely haven't read Emma by Jane Austen. So I was going in just about as clueless as I possibly could. So with next to no expectations of the show, what exactly did I think of it? If you're not new here, you know the drill. You know we are starting with our highlights, which is basically what I liked about the show. And buckle up, because I feel like there was quite a lot. I feel like in every video, I always take the time to applaud the cast of whatever show I'm going to see, regardless of what I thought of the show itself, unless I have nothing nice to say, you know, but the cast of Clueless were absolutely phenomenal. I had actually seen a lot of them in shows previously, including Keelan. I saw him as JD in Heathers whilst that was touring the UK last time. I'd also seen Imelda Warren Green when she was in Kathy and Stella Solve a Murder, and of course I'd seen James in Aladdin. But having a quick flip through the program, Clueless is actually one of the first major West End productions that a lot of this young cast have been in. And for such a young cast, the talent was over the top. The energy and passion from everyone on stage literally radiated out over the audience, which I absolutely loved, and you just could not take your eyes off a single one of them. I must say Emma Flynn's Cher was such a treat to watch. I feel like with a character like Cher, it would have been really easy for her to fall into this like ditzy, self-absorbed, dumb blonde trope, honestly making her quite unlikable. But Emma portrayed Cher with this kindness and confidence, even if her kindness was sometimes misplaced, that made her character really likable. I was really worried going in that I wouldn't like Cher as a character just because of the kind of negative stereotype that the pretty popular girl character typically falls into in a show. But I was so genuinely drawn to how Emma decided to play Cher that it was a character I ended up absolutely adoring. Keelan as Josh as well was absolutely brilliant. I obviously knew he had the vocals to back up the role, having seen him previously, but it was nice seeing him play a more lighthearted, humorous character, I guess. It's definitely a refreshing change from his portrayal of JD, who obviously is this dark, edgy psycho character. Also, given how little time Josh as a character actually spends on stage, I still think Keelan managed to have a really big impact, which can sometimes be difficult to do. And making such a big impact, I think, is really a testament to how well he played the character. Cher's friends Dion and Ty, played by China Rose Frederick and Romana Lewis Malley, respectively, were absolutely iconic too. They both felt distinct and unique, and I really liked how each of them played off of Emma and Cher's character as well. You could really get a sense of like there was actual friendship behind it, if that makes sense. Another real standout to me, and the last name I'll drop for now, is definitely going to be Maz Mara as Elton. He had the "Don't You Know Who I Am" future frat president vibe absolutely nailed. He made Elton this beautifully unlikable character in like a I'm a god's gift to women kind of way that made him so much fun to watch on stage. And another thing I really liked overall about how all of the cast were portraying their characters is that despite all of them being stereotypical in one way or another, none of them felt like over the top or dramatic in like a caricature-y way. Each one of them felt real and incredibly believable and grounded, which I do genuinely think is thanks to the way the performers were playing them, both in the choices they made personally about their characters as well as the direction I'm sure they were given by the production team. I think part of the reason I really liked this is because often movie to stage adaptations fall into this trap where you have a performer playing an actor playing a character. Whilst it's been forever since I've seen the movie, no one felt like they were trying to do an impression of the character that had come before. Emma Flynn wasn't trying to be Alicia Silverstone being Cher. Emma was playing Cher herself, and the same goes for everyone else. Each person was deliberately making the character their own, which I think was a choice I much preferred over something, say, like Back to the Future the Musical, right? As much as I love Back to the Future the Musical, the reality is every performer playing Marty is playing Michael J. Fox playing Marty, as opposed to making Marty their own character. And I feel like this really helped establish Clueless the Musical as an adaptation of Clueless, as opposed to them just taking Clueless the movie and dumping it on the stage and adding a few songs to it. And let's let's be real, like I could probably sit here and continue listing each and every performer in the show and pointing out something that they did with their character that I absolutely loved. And as much as I would love to do that, I am also keen to keep this video from being too long. So just know that everyone in this show was bloody brilliant. Without such a passionate and amazing cast, I do not think this show would have worked as well as it did. But moving on, I have to talk about the costumes in this show. Clueless the movie gave us iconic looks, right? So you knew this show had to include some fabulous fashion statements. But I wasn't expecting Paloma Young to smash these costumes out of the park half as well as she did. Now, if you're sat there thinking, Flora, Paloma Young, that name sounds familiar. That's because it should. Paloma Young is the same fabulous costume designer that worked on the off-Broadway production of Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. She also worked with Disney on the costumes for the Disney Cruise Line adaptation of Tangled the musical. And perhaps most recently and most notably, with regards to where I think British theatre fans will know her from, is she is the costume designer behind the costumes in & Juliet. And her incredible CV aside, I think Paloma managed to perfectly capture the essence of the looks that people know and love from Clueless the movie, whilst also reimagining them in a fun and fresh way to revive them not only for a modern audience, but also for people to view on a stage as opposed to through a screen. As with the characters, none of the costumes that she designed felt like gimmicky or cheap in any way. Like they could have gone down a really over-exaggerated 90s fashion look, kind of like if you were to sort of go to Spirit Halloween and pick up a generic 90s person costume. Does that make sense? She managed to perfectly blend the styles of the movie and styles of the 90s, particularly LA 90s, with silhouettes that I feel like people nowadays would recognize. 90s fashion to an extent has come back anyway, so we had the kind of baggier jeans, things like that. Like everything felt modern and fresh, but also like I was looking at a stylized version of the 90s, and I really appreciated that. My personal favorite costume in the show is basically anything that Cher wore, particularly this half blue, half red kind of tartan jacket she had on. If I came across that in the shop, I would have snatched that up right away. But if you have seen this and you have a favorite costume, let me know what it is down in the comments, because I love knowing what people's favorite costumes are in a show. Cher aside though, the ensemble too was amazingly vibrant. The way all of the costumes played with layers and textures and colors made the entire cast look visually interesting, whilst also ensuring that Cher didn't blend in too much. She still stood out as our main character. I also really loved how the costumes very subtly showed the passage of time throughout the show, and they achieved this by showing us shifts in color palette, kind of subtly indicating to the audience a change in season. And when I say it was subtle, it was very subtle, but I do think it really helped remind the audience that this story actually takes place over the course of a year. But all in all, I think the costumes in Clueless the musical amazingly captured the essence of the iconic fashion looks that we know and love from the movie, but then pluses them up to stand out on a stage, as well as be just like a little bit more fun and whimsical because it's the medium of theatre. Paloma Young has made these costumes such a highlight of the show. They are fantastic. Next up for me, a highlight is definitely going to be the music. Like I said earlier, this version of Clueless the musical features an original soundtrack by Katie Tunstall, and I absolutely adored it. It was so catchy, and when I say I had the songs playing on loop the entire train ride home, like I could not get them out of my head. I mentioned it briefly earlier, but Katie Tunstall is, at least to me, most well known for the song Black Horse and a Cherry Tree, and her prowess as a singer-songwriter I do think really shines through in this musical. I was worried with Katie not being a musical theatre songwriter that everything would just feel like a pop song, kind of squeezed into a musical. But whilst all of the songs paid homage to the iconic sound of the 90s, I did really feel like each one of them belonged in the scenes that they were taking place in. The show didn't feel too much like it was just pop songs being strung together by a plot, which some of these movie musicals can often feel like. I think everything worked and wove into the story of Clueless really well. It didn't feel kind of overly forced. And I think this kind of pairs with the fact that where Clueless was once originally a jukebox musical, had the music not been woven in and worked so well into the story, despite all of the songs being original, it could have still felt like a jukebox musical. But I think Katie, as well as lyricist Glenn Slater, did a brilliant job of ensuring that it didn't feel like we were just kind of pausing the story for a song to happen. Everything felt really seamless and really musical theatre. Now, 6 songs from this musical are available on streaming services, and those are Perfect, New Girl, Human Barbie, Whatever, Reasonable Doubts, and the song Clueless. And I highly encourage you to go and listen to them if you want just a taste of what this musical is like, because all of these songs are great. Sadly, none of the big ensemble numbers have been recorded yet, but of the ones y'all can go and listen to right now, my favorite was definitely Reasonable Doubt. It's this kind of 90s boy band inspired number sung by Josh and some law interns. And it's kind of the moment where Josh starts to realize that, hang on, maybe these feelings I'm feeling about Cher being about to go on a date with some guy are actually feelings I have about Cher herself. It was so funny in the show, and Keelan and the boys just gave it absolutely 110%, and I could not stop giggling. And the fact that it's a brilliant song on top of the way they performed it, I think is just fantastic. But of all of the songs in the show, including the ones that haven't been recorded, my favorite is definitely, I mean, I don't know the official name of the song, but I'm going to call it All That and a Bag of Chips, which is also included in the curtain call. It was so fun and so catchy, and this was definitely the song that I was humming kind of the rest of the way home, and the choreography that went along with it, oh my god, was fantastic. Now, as I said earlier, the show has been extended through until 2026, so I do have high hopes that we'll get a cast recording for this show. At the very least, I'm going to be manifesting it, so hopefully we get news of that soon. Now, I will say that I found it interesting that the majority of the show decided to focus on these poppy, fast, upbeat songs. They were very bright and very cheerful, with very few slower moments, which I do think if you're someone that likes a lot of variation in the musical numbers throughout your musical, you might find Clueless feeling a bit samey. But I didn't really mind it personally, though I will say if a musical has too many slow songs, I get really bored because my ADHD brain just can't cope with them no matter how good the song is. So I can see why people might feel like this show is very unvaried when it comes to the music it offers, even if I disagree, because I think the youth and upbeatness and vibrancy of all of the music perfectly matches the youthful energy of the show anyway, and I think it also really well matches the era of the music it's trying to replicate. Okay, we are on to our fourth, I think, and final highlight for me, and that is going to be the set, and prepare for me to gush about this set because I loved it. Everything just felt just right and just so perfect for the show. Given how many different settings and locations the story visits throughout the show, I think the set did a really great job of capturing all of these scenes. Some scenes only required sort of minimal set changes, with the cast carrying things like desks on or maybe pushing a sign on that told us we were at the mall or maybe the high school, with these being kind of paired with a subtle lighting change. But other scenes required bigger set changes, such as Cher's bedroom, which had these amazing fold-out wardrobes, or the house party, which literally saw the facade of a house being dropped in. So there was a really nice balance between these smaller set changes as well as these big, more elaborate ones, which really helped build the world of Clueless. A particular favorite of mine though, and probably the one I'm going to spend the most time talking about, is the way that this set brought the different cars from Clueless to life, which may be because aside from being a theatre kid, I am a car girly at heart, but also because of just how stinking creative it was, because they brought these cars to life by building them out of furniture, but not maybe in the way that you might be thinking. Now, if you are familiar with the movie Clueless, then you know it has some pretty iconic cars, namely Cher's 1994 Jeep YJ. Now that I think of it, driving a Jeep actually makes Cher the second musical theatre character to drive a Jeep. She actually joins the club with Heather Duke. And actually, if Heather Duke's parents were rich and bought her a brand new Jeep at the time, so 1989, she would have been driving a Jeep YJ as well. So they have the same car, guys. And if you didn't know, I actually drive a Jeep as well. This is my Jeep Baby, named after Baby from Dirty Dancing, if you didn't know, because nobody puts Baby in a corner. But this makes me very particular about my Jeep representation, okay? But I dare say that Clueless the Musical represented Cher's Jeep perfectly. So Cher's Jeep on the stage was made of a sofa, which had stitching down kind of like the middle front part that imitated the iconic grille of a Jeep. And it also had these lights that were revealed by folding down flaps in the armrest. And you know what? The set designer could have very easily gone with the more iconic round headlamps that I think most people associate with Jeeps. However, they stayed true to Cher owning a YJ and gave it rectangular headlamps, because the rectangular headlamps are what the YJ are known for. That's how you look at a Jeep and go, that's a YJ. So the fact that they decided to stick to their guns with that, I think was amazing. So as a Jeep fan, thank you. But Flora's rambling about Jeeps aside, which I could genuinely do for hours, there were also 2 other cars in the show, and they made sure that they matched the colors to them and everything. So first up, you have Elton's blue 1995 Chevy Camaro, which was made out of this like blue cool box that they took to the party, and like the headlamps popped out of the side. And I loved that the cool box matched the kind of rounded, sleek design the 1995 Camaros have. And obviously they also made the cool box blue, which matched his car. And then there's also Dion's, though I think it's technically Murray's red BMW, which was made by folding up the end of Cher's bed, which matched the BMW's boxy design really well. So Mikiko Suzuki McAdams, if you ever watch this video and when the show ends and no one needs the Jeep sofa, I will take the Jeep sofa. I will gladly have the Jeep sofa. But carrying on from talking about the amazing way the set brought the cars to life, I think everything in this set had just the right amount of attention to detail while still allowing this kind of almost whimsical, fantastical feel to it that made this set feel really perfect for telling the story of Clueless. But as you can see, there is literally no shortage of praises for me to sing about this show. I could probably go on for hours, but I won't. So let's carry on to the lowlights. But before I dive into the lowlights, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to give it a like as well as subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of my future stagey videos. Okay, let's get to the lowlights. Okay, so the only real lowlight I have for Clueless the Musical is going to be the story / passage of time across the course of the show. That is to say that yes, whilst the story takes place over the course of a year, it doesn't always really feel like it. Like, it could also have taken place over a week if you didn't catch the subtle nods to the changing time and seasons throughout the show. And that's okay, right? Like, I'm not asking the story to kind of like hold my hand and be like, okay, now it's December and the scene that you saw last time took place 3 months ago. Like, I'm not asking my story to do that. I just think the fact that it was so easy to miss out on some of the clues that the passage of time throughout the show was changing made the story feel a little bit jarring in places, most notably the relationship between Josh and Cher. Now, Cher and Josh are ex-step siblings, if you didn't know. So clearly they have an established relationship that kind of has formed and evolved prior to when we sit down in the theatre and watch the story of Clueless. The dynamic between them is fun. I really like the bickering back and forth. And of course, their relationship shifts and changes over the show, eventually leading to them realizing that they're in love with one another. Given how little time we actually see Cher and Josh spend together on the stage, to me, it felt kind of like the moment where they admitted they finally liked one another kind of came out of nowhere, even if I did know that that's where the story was going. It felt too much like it happened just because it had to happen, as opposed to it being the natural conclusion to the story we'd watched up until that point. I think it's a really cute relationship, don't get me wrong. I just, like I said, don't feel like it was the natural conclusion at that point, given what we had just watched sort of for the 2 hours previous. I think there were just a number of other storylines that were far more fleshed out and made more of a focus throughout the show that were definitely wrapped up in a much more satisfying way than the Cher Josh storyline. Now, obviously, like I said, it's been ages since I saw the movie, so I don't know if the movie feels the same way, but I do know that when you have a story that's trying to wrap up like 3 or 4 storylines all at the same point, as opposed to wrapping them up in a staggered manner, it can often feel like one or more of those storylines has to take a little bit of a back seat and had their conclusion sort of rushed through because we spent more time on other storylines. I don't feel like this spoiled the show too much if you couldn't tell by the praises I was singing literally moments ago. I just wanted to mention it because it was a small issue I had with the show and its overall story, but every other storyline I think was brilliantly paced and well concluded. Okay, there you have it. Those were all of my highlights and lowlights for Clueless the Musical at the Trafalgar Theatre in London. Is it a musical that your strict old-fashioned musical theatre fans are going to love? No, it isn't super serious or deep. It's a lot more light and fun. I do, however, think it's the perfect night out for those looking for a bit of 90s nostalgia or a light-hearted feel-good musical that doesn't come with a lot of emotional baggage. Clueless to me is one of the stronger movie to musical adaptations that we have on the West End right now, and I do genuinely think that it's one of the better musicals I've seen thus far in 2025. Once again, a big thank you to Me, Myself and I for booking tickets for me to go and see this show. If you guys have had the chance to see Clueless the Musical, I would love for you to let me know all of your thoughts and feelings about it in the comments down below. Make sure you take the time to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on more theatrical fun. And as always, my lovelies, remember to stay stagey. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!